Well, Alberta updated its fiscal books today and revealed a lot of black ink, thanks to that thing sometimes called black gold. The province's fall economic update shows a surplus of $5.5 billion, up $3.2 billion from what it projected earlier this year. The province credits higher income taxes and oil revenues, but the strong forecast faces challenges ahead for 2024. Nate Horner is Alberta's finance minister, and he joins us now. Minister, good to speak with you again.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity.
So a big boost to your surplus thanks to oil revenues on a day where we're seeing OPEC and a lot of OPEC plus countries are getting ready to cut production. I mean, how does that factor in to the future picture for your province?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of geopolitical uncertainty with the price of oil. It's interesting in our mid-year update, you did mention taxes and non-renewable resource revenue. Liquids and condensate were the big thing that bolstered our resource revenue line. We also saw a $1.8 billion increase in combined in corporate and personal income tax. So yeah, kind of across the board, I think it speaks to the resiliency of the Alberta economy. Obviously, if OPEC does consider a deeper production cut, it probably leads to a higher price, which does help Alberta's coffers, but can certainly cause some other challenges with affordability around the globe.
Right, and certainly potentially an economic slowdown. What do you plan to do with the $5.5 billion? Is this money going to go on the debt? Is it going to go to a rainy day fund? Last time we spoke, you were talking about setting up a fund to help people convert from gas to home heating oil to qualify for the carve-out. I don't know if that's in your plans. How do you plan to use the money?
Well, not for that fund, although that sometimes a ridiculous policy requires a ridiculous example. But I would say that we have a fiscal framework here in the province where any surplus cash at the end of the year, half goes automatically towards debt repayment. And then the other half can be used for three different things. It could be used for further debt repayment, investment in our Heritage Savings Trust Fund, or one-time expenses that don't impact the operating line going forward. Right. So that's the consideration of Premier and Cabinet and the larger team, obviously. But while we're discussing debt, I would say what we have seen in this mid-year update as well is that our debt servicing costs have increased, obviously with rising interest rates. So even though we paid down a substantial amount of debt last fiscal year, our debt servicing cost is now around $3.1 billion. So we're cognizant of that pressure, and any debt that we can pay down, we'll try to.
Right. You said off the top that the increased revenues were driven apart by the resiliency of the Alberta economy. But, you know, we talked to the Premier earlier this week when she tabled the Sovereignty Act resolution, and she talked about the uncertainty in the Alberta economy, about the 2035 deadlines and the regulations in place there. And she says it's stopping investment and it's potentially stopping economic activity. How do you square sort of the pessimism and concern, you know, of Monday with sort of the optimism and the surplus of today?
Well, I think that both things are accurate, honestly. Like, yeah, we announced the world's first net zero ethylene cracker with Dow yesterday here. $6.5 billion U.S. capex, 9 billion Canadian, 8,000 construction jobs, biggest project Alberta's seen in probably 15 years. They only make one of these in the globe a year, and this will be the first net zero one. But imagine what we could be doing if we had help from the feds. If you look at, speaking about our resiliency, our commitment to attracting investment, something of note, while our corporate income tax continues to increase, if you saw the federal fall economic statement, it was clear that, a few things, debt servicing costs, they're increasing spending, but also a decrease in their projected corporate income tax of $14.5 billion. Right. So I think they need to be more concerned about attracting investment in the overall economy of our country.
Well, their focus is obviously on the transition in terms of investment, and I know Alberta and the federal government have sent big delegations to Dubai for COP. Either Premier Danielle Smith is either there or will soon be on her way. There's a story in the Globe and Mail today by my colleague Marika Walsh, who spoke with Stephen Guilbeault, the Environment Minister, who suggests that COP would be a good time to announce an emissions cap for oil and gas. I know this is something Alberta is dead set against, but COP runs for about a week. So it sounds like at some point in the next week or so, sir, we're going to get the details of the emissions cap from the federal government. What do you anticipate to see, and what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, well, we'll be obviously extremely opposed. It'd be nice if they could, not do unconstitutional things every other week. Absolutely ridiculous. I go back to the Dow project. Look at what we are doing here. Alberta is a global leader in carbon sequestration, and we're showing that we can do that while growing the economy. People need to ask the question back to Guilbeault and the Prime Minister about the overall economic picture of this country. We can do both things at once if we have leadership. That's not what we're seeing. That's not what we're seeing out of this federal government. If you saw what the comments that the Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem made at the Fed's fall economic statement, saying this isn't verbatim, but this is a very weak excuse of considering this a fiscal anchor, that they want to see declining net debt to GDP over the rest of the term. Their debt servicing costs are going to go from $45 billion to $60 billion from right now to 28-29. They've got big problems, and Alberta's a leader in this environmental file. They should be coming to us, I guess. Maybe we should be showing them how to do this, not only for ourselves, but for the whole country.
Right. Well, look, certainly a lot of that debt servicing is because of their own, philosophical program spending, but a lot of it was driven by the absorption of the debt at the national level during the pandemic, because a lot of provinces couldn't take it on. They took it on, so they couldn't. So some of that was done in the national interest, but I take your point. It doesn't make it any less of a fiscal challenge. But there's another challenge coming from your neighboring province. Premier Scott Moe said today that Saskatchewan is going to stop collecting the federal carbon tax on electric heat. He's already said he was going to do it on natural gas. Now it's applied to electric heat starting on January 1. I know your energy system is different. It doesn't have a Crown Corp at the center of it like they do in Saskatchewan, though the Sovereignty Act resolution does allow for that potentially down the road. What's your reaction to what your neighbor in Saskatchewan announced today, and what might Alberta consider doing as well, in addition on this?
I'm totally supportive of Scott Moe, and I think, I think I heard his comments. What's fair is fair. They're doing it for some, but not for all. Saskatchewan's system, they do have the ability to do that. Alberta doesn't. We have private corporations that run our generation, so it's not an option for us. But I'm very supportive of Scott and the team in Saskatchewan. I think it's.
Do you think this sets them on a collision course? For violating federal law? I mean, federal law says you've got to collect this tax, you've got to remit it, or you're on the hook. And they're just flat out saying they're not going to do it. Do you think they're putting themselves in legal jeopardy here, Minister?
Well, I would say that the federal government brought this on themselves when they chose to weaponize the carbon tax, after telling us that it had nothing to do with affordability for all of these years, and then they chose to take it off for some, not for all. In a certain region of the province on a fuel that burns far dirtier. There's other ways that they could have chosen to provide affordability to those folks. They didn't. They chose this. So they brought it on themselves.
Alberta Finance Minister Nate Horner, good to speak with you again. Thanks for joining us today.
Very nice to speak with you.